Hey everyone, it is Dave. Welcome once again to another edition of Culling My Collection, and tonight, philatelic literature. And I know what you're thinking. What is philatelic literature? It is books on stamp collecting. As crazy as that sounds, and there are so many of them out there. Some of them are very rare, some are very common, some are good, and some are bad, just like any other genre. I'm going to show you or share with you tonight 20 books of this subject matter. And I am a stamp collector. I will tell you that right away. I started collecting stamps when I was about 8 years old. My dad and I, it's one of the few things my dad and I would do together. Usually, if it was the perfect day, it would be rainy outside. We'd have a Sherlock Holmes movie or a Humphrey Bogart movie on TV. And my parents had this huge, I don't know if it's a kitchen table, living room table, something you would have Thanksgiving dinner on. So a good puzzle table or Lego table. And we did our stamps together. So I would be on one side of the table, my dad would be on the other. He would make a pot of coffee, so you had that sensory element too. So I've got my coffee with us tonight. And we would spend hours hanging out with our stamp collection. By the time you're normally about 13 or so, that kind of goes away. You know, there's other things. There's sports, there's girls, there's all sorts of, cool events you can do, video games, instead of stamps. But as you generally get older, you circle back to the stamp collecting. And I definitely did, probably in my late 30s. And so for the past maybe 15 years or so, I've really been back into the subject. I've edited a book on stamp collecting. I am writing a book on stamp collecting. So it's very close to my heart. So enough talking. I'm going to share with you some books. It's interesting also because you don't really need any books to do stamp collecting, but these are really cool reference. So a lot of what we have is reference. There's no really good stories per se, although over here there is books by Lawrence Block. And Lawrence Block is a mystery writer. He's a stamp collector also. And so he infiltrates stamp collecting into particularly his Hitman series. So I always enjoy reading those books because wherever this guy is off doing a hit, he's visiting stamp stores and stamp dealers and, putting stamps in his album. So I think it's kind of cool. The very first thing a stamp collector should have is a catalog. Now, most of the time, there's going to be a catalog for your particular country. So if you are a U.S. person, which most people watching my videos are, you're going to have a U.S. specialized stamp book. That's a lot of pages. It's 1,000 pages in length. And these are basically all the stamps the U.S. has ever put out. It is also interesting, the very front of the book, there's, first of all, the first 30 pages, there's a lot of information about stamps in there. So that's good reference material if you're not a collector and you want to learn about it, or if you're a new collector, because it'll talk about different terms and things like that. Then you have the actual catalog itself, which will give you some generalized prices to base purchases off of. Normally, stamps are sold at a discount. It is not uncommon for a 50% discount off of the price in the catalog. As you get into stamp collecting, you will see that sometimes it's greater, sometimes it's less. But it basically goes through each and every stamp. However, the stamps basically, let's see when they stop here. Hold on. Okay. They stop at about page 380. Now, that leaves us like 620 more pages. Then comes the cool stuff. the newspaper stamps, the periodical stamps, how we shipped newspapers and periodicals from the publisher to the retailer. Postage stamps, special delivery stamps, airmail stamps, match and medicine, perfumes, computer postage, revenues, hunting permits, essays, specimens, my bookmark, Christmas seals, and then some of our territories like Guam, the Philippines, Ryukyu Islands, things like that are going to be in this book as well. This one is old enough. It's 2022, so it has United Nations. Newer catalogs don't have United Nations because people think this is just too big. So the newer catalogs are slimmer. The proofs, the essays, they've been taken out and put into another book as well. But this is one of the great books. You can kind of see from the edgeware, it gets a lot of use from me because I'm a U.S. collector primarily. So I'm going to throw that back here. And then if you want the worldwide catalog, let me see if I can pan over here. Okay, so the worldwide catalog is basically from here all the way over here. That's the rest of the world. So 6 volumes? 6 volumes, A and B. So 12 volumes altogether. But they are alphabetized. The only weird thing is, like, this is one of the early catalogs and it has Canada in it. It's showing you a Newfoundland stamp. So you have to keep in mind that countries like Germany that would have like Danzig and some of the plebiscites, they're going to be with Germany rather than under D for Danzig. Okay. And let's put this one away as well. Give us some more space. Also shows I'm a stamp collector when I have a magnifier right by my desk as well. All right. Let's look at a couple books that got me into stamp collecting. And I was a kid in, obviously, the late 70s and early 80s, and we had what was called the Benjamin Franklin Stamp Club. And I remember Miss Standard, my fourth grade teacher, so I would have been 9, was the president, or not the president, but the advisor. And we would meet like once a week, talk about stamps. It was really kind of cool. And they would give out these books from the U.S. Postal Service, Stamps and Stories. And this is very similar to the catalog we just saw. It's going to give you pricing and things like that. And it's also kind of cool to see how the pricing has gone up or down over time. And then what's also great is that usually with some of the major stamps, and I'm sorry, the glare is really tough, it'll tell some stories about them. And I loved reading them. I was a very avid reader when I was a kid, and still am, obviously, with all these books. But particularly when I was a kid, I didn't have a lot of books. Books were expensive, and that's kind of why I think I saved so many of them. Because like today, you know, you can pick up books from a Friends of the Library bookstore or a yard sale for like $1 or a couple of bucks. Back in the day, this was like a lot of money to buy a brand new book. But anyway, I didn't have a whole lot of books, but I had these and I would reread them and they were amazing. So every year they would come on and put out a new edition. I think there's only 12 of them though. They did from the 70s into the 80s. And again, I think there's only about 12 editions of these. And I've got a couple. I'd love to get more, and I probably will. So those are really good to have, and if you're interested in stamps and all that, they're fun. I don't even know where to go next. Maybe some of the older things first. So one of the books that I have this is a rebound book, and this is Historical Reference List of the revenue stamps of the United States. Okay, so if you are like an insomniac and you need to go to sleep, get this book. It was printed in the late 1800s. Again, this one is rebound. 1899 is when this was originally printed. And it talks about all the different revenue issues. And it gives about, how many were printed, why this was used, what it looked like, what color it was, everything like that. So, and if I didn't say the date issued, it'll literally say the $1 manifest stamp, printed October 31st, 1862, delivered to post offices November 26th, plate number, how many stamps per sheet, everything like that. So a really cool reference book if you collect revenues. Revenues are one of the more interesting areas of stamps. Like, I am a back of the book collector. So when you saw that specialized catalog, the front of the book is only 300 to 400 pages. The back of the book is 600, and that's where you get more of the unique, rare stamps. And I think the more interesting stamps too. Next, we'll take a look at this book called Essays and Proofs of United States Revenue Stamps. So again, we're looking at revenue stamps here. This particular book is called the Turner book. And I love these because they have such great pictures. The problem with this book is that it has not been updated in about 70 years. So when you have the price guide over here and it says it's like $10, what is that in today's volume? Is that like $50? Is it $100? What is the rarity of the stamp? What is the interest in the stamp? Because it is really supply and demand. There are some very rare stamps out there. When you look at and these are some essays for playing card stamps. So cool, but super rare. The thing is, like when you look at the inverted Jenny, right? That upside down airplane, that book, or that stamp rather, is about $250,000 for a lousy copy. They go all the way up to about $500,000. So it just depends on the quality of the stamp. So what do you do when you have, and there's only 100 of them printed? What do you do when you have another stamp that there's less than 100 printed and there's no interest in it in the collector market? It's obviously not worth $250,000. And it's not uncommon for something as rare or as scarce as the inverted Jenny, $250,000 to $30 to $50. There's my cat Bo. She's getting ready to settle down for the night. It is kind of late, so it's about 11:40, June 20th, 2026. So by the time I edit this video and everything and put it up, it'll be on the 21st. So again, the Turner catalog, it's kind of rare, but it is, if you're a stamp collector, really essential for finding the cool, rare things. And there's different formulas you can use for establishing a more modern price. After that, a fun book, let's do that, called Pat's Paragraphs. This is my copy of Pat's Paragraphs. Again, a lot of pages. This guy, his nickname was Pat. I think it was like Edward was his first name, Edward Pat Hurst. And he wrote a lot of columns for newspapers and things like that. And so what he does is he compiles everything that he wrote into one book. And it's kind of like some great stories about postage stamps. So this is a much more relaxed reading that you're going to learn a lot of things about. So if you just want to learn about stamps, this is a great book to get for that. So let me get some of these out of the way. And then we'll jump into maybe an auction catalog. I have a lot of auction catalogs because they're fascinating. They are when you have a major collector who dies or decides it's time to move on with my life, I'm done with stamps, they'll put out a major collection. And one of those people was this guy named Morton Dean Joyce. And in the early 90s, he sold his collection. So many, I mean, right? Big collection of stamps, different categories. So they did, I think, 3 different sales. This one is on revenue stamps. And it's literally like, you know, here are pages of what he had in his collection. And I mean, just stunning things, proofs and essays, manuscript cancels, banknotes, all sorts of different things. And they give you like an auction lot number. So let's take a look at this large lot right up here. Huge collection. You can see they're all like kind of line canceled with a pin. Lot number 1553. 1553, a regular block of 27. There's some reconstruction, which means some of it's been cut apart, but I don't want to say glued back together, but reconnected. Catalog value, $3,200. However, they think because it's from this collection and so rare, it's going to go for $5,000. So again, just, I mean, stamps after stamps after stamps. So if you enjoy looking at them, you know, a stamp catalog is a great place to go. Depending on the catalog, you can get them pretty cheap. $10, $15 on up to about $50. My next book is going to be the Queen stamps. And I got this on a recommendation from Sandifer, which used to be an auction house. They closed recently, but they were in England and they showcased their favorite books. This is one of them. This is a beautiful book. Surprisingly, it's really heavy. It is about 3 times the weight of any of the other books I showed you, except for that catalog back there. And this one, I mean, the foreword is from Her Royal Highness the Duke of York, the authorized history of the Royal Philatelic collection. So the only thing that I don't like about this book is that there are limited pictures compared to the writing. And don't get me wrong, I love reading the stories, and sometimes we do have a lot of pictures, but other times it's like, you know, 3/4, 80% story, and then 20% image. And I like stamps because they're tiny little works of art. So, and I paid a lot for that book too. But it tells you what the royal collection was like, or is like. Queen Elizabeth II, stamp collector. I don't know about King Charles. I don't think so. A specialty book. There are generally books written on areas of specialty. So if you want to collect, for instance, revenues, I showed you some revenue books. If you're interested in Hawaii, there is a Hawaii book. And this is what's called the Myers-Harris book. The authors, that just was what goes by them. But it's all on Hawaii. It's also a very heavy book. And it is very striking, price guides and everything like that. I'm not sure when it came out. And it's got beautiful end pages as well. Let's see. $1948. So that's also why the paper is pretty heavy. So we've got, and that is, by the way, probably, I don't want to say the rarest book, but it is the most expensive book. If you find it today, it's like several $100s just for that book. So you always kind of want to keep an eye out for these specialty types of books because they do demand a premium price. And besides that, they're tough to find. They're rare. Let's take a look at a very fun book. This is one that I picked up probably for $1. And this is just a rundown of stamps from 1847 to 1963. 1847 is when we produced our first postage stamp here in the U.S. England did it earlier in like 1840. And you may have heard of the penny black. That's what this is. Not what this is. This is what the very first stamp is. All of these are great because they take a look at postage as it was produced, not in the different categories. So you might have a commemorative followed by an airmail. And so I love the way that this is set up. So you can literally see what's happening at the same time compared to going back to, one of the back of the book specialties. Like, okay, all the airmail are separate. All the postage due are separate. Here, it's all more chronological. So it's a really good book. You can get these pretty inexpensively. I always check this area of a used bookstore because you never know what you're going to find. And keep in mind, there's always going to be a lot more coin books than there are stamp books, but you may end up lucking out. Let's take a look at a more current book. One that I really enjoyed listening to the author, I've heard him on a couple of podcasts, is Richard Lehman. And he talks about investing in stamps. And for us that are stamp collectors, investing, yeah, we do want to get our money back at the end of the collection, but it's more about the process than anything else compared to the end result. So this guy suggests specific stamps and what he thinks the stamp market is going to do. So there's a lot of graphs and charts and things like that. But I do like this because it is also a good amount of reading. There's some case studies, things like that. And stamp collecting is an alternate form of investment, and I'm not going to suggest that you do that or anything like that. But it is definitely something I think about in terms of my hobby. Like when I go out and play golf, I know my clubs are depreciating in value. If I like to go to the movies, I know that's a one-use ticket. It's an experiential thing rather than something that I'm going to be able to resell. But with the stamp collection, it's much different. A stamp collection is just like if you want the rarer stamps, you're going to pay a little bit more, and it can get to be a much more serious hobby. What else should we talk about? One of the cool catalogs that I've gotten, and I haven't gone through them that much, is a 4-volume set of airmail. And so we've got 1, 2, they're all color-coded, 3, and finally 4. And these are really cool. Today, I think the more current editions have 5 books. But this is literally going through country by country and talking about what stamps they've put out for airmail. So we've got France, we've got Yugoslavia, Union of South Africa. Really kind of cool stuff here. I'm going to go back to volume 1 because I think that should be the U.S. And sure enough, it is. And it goes through each and every U.S. airmail stamp. Keep in mind that with this, there's usually a society. So if you end up liking airmail, the airmail society is what you would join. There's a Hawaii society. About 4 more books and then we're done. And the first one is essays, which means that these are stamps that were drawn up but then changed or not adopted. So it might be something like they want to change in the font. The font's too large. They want to change it. Or they're going to go from Arabic numbers to Roman numerals, things like that. But this one is by Clarence Brazier. This is a very famous book as well. And then it goes through all the different essays or manifestations, maybe stages. That would be a good term to use. And so you can see the development of the stamps. You can see everything. I mean, this is how intricate that this gets. And this is the rabbit hole of stamp collecting. Is like you can go like into all these really specific areas, and it's amazing how much knowledge is out there, but very little knowledge is in the books. The books are filled with knowledge, don't get me wrong, but the idea of us taking that knowledge that we've learned as stamp collectors and actually putting it into print is very, very difficult. And with the aging population of the stamp collectors, a lot of that knowledge is getting lost. So I really hope that more and more books are written, used, found, whatever, when it comes to stamp collecting. All right, there's two more books I want to talk about, and then we're done for the evening. Both of them are on match and medicine stamps. And these are also back of the book stamps. They were produced primarily right after the end of the Civil War. And what would happen to pay for Reconstruction is that there would be a tax on medicines, perfumes, playing cards, and matches. Not a whole lot, 1 cent to 5 cents generally, but they're amazing. Even though the government printed these, the dies, the engravings, were actually made by the companies. And so like on this one here, this is one of the most famous, where you have, if you drink this tonic, basically what happens is that you'll be strong enough to beat death over here, but with the skeleton, played by the skeleton over here. So this is one of the more famous Hunt's Remedy match and medicine stamps. So this is kind of, I guess, the Bible, I would call it, for the United States, what we would call M&M stamps. And this is by Kasten Holtz and Sons, and a lot of, actually I'm going to say very few pictures at the beginning. So what's going to happen is there's going to be a lot of reading, but at the very end, that's where all your pictures are. That's where all the plates are. And it's really a good book, but again, it's only if you're going to be a real big collector of that area. The person who is, I would say, most active in this field is Michael Aldrich, and he has his own company that deals specifically with auctions, and he does a lot of revenues, a lot of match and medicine, and this is a census, basically how many are out there of these particular stamps. And so we've got here, what I like about this book, I think it's a little bit better because the picture is right with the company and then the census numbers. For instance, this one here from Barber Match Company, a 3-cent image, quantity issued unknown. Scott's catalog value back in the 1980s showed an increase over the past 10 years, but by the 1990s, like an 83% increase. 1994, they can account for 15 of them, and then they break down. Some are faulty, some are sound, some are fine in terms of grading, some are very good. How many were in the Morton Dean Joyce collection, right? 2 of them out of the 15. So it's really fascinating, and some of them kind of look like regular postage stamps, and then others don't. Others are just like, just like really attractive stamps. But anyway, this is a fairly, I don't want to say easy book to find, but it's out there and it's not too expensive. Again, this is a census of United States match and medicine stamps. All right, that was a lot. So thanks for staying with me. I'll probably do another one of these, but definitely off into the future because there are some other books that are so good when it comes to stamp collecting. And so myself and Bo wish you a happy evening, and we will see you in the next video.